years as a young man, how did you figure it out? You know, what were some of the things as a young adolescent man that you were still, even though you were in the church, you were still struggling? Like, what was that like when you were trying to navigate and figure out what it meant to be a man before you became this Kirk that we know today?
Yeah, it's man, the reason why what you're doing is so important, because there's nothing more frightening and nothing more destructive than to be a man without a blueprint, to not have any navigational system, to be able to not know what your purpose is, and to be able to fumble through the majority of your life and not have an identity that you then begin to put on other people, and you put your negativity on them, and you put your bruises on them, and you put your scars on them, and so you exacerbate this generational downward spiral that we see in so many men of our time, is because the lack of a blueprint can be transferable. And so it is very important. And so for me, like, I had no dream, I had no purpose, I had nobody ever speaking into my life. I was adopted when I was 4 by a 64-year-old woman, and she was a widow. And so not having a man in the house was very destructive for me. And living with the abandonment of my mother, I became very promiscuous, and trying to find the love of a woman the wrong way, because I was so empty with not having love of my mother. And so I ruined that journey and process, so I wasn't taught the right way.
So, can I interject on that point there? You know, so when it came to sex, did anybody talk about sex, you know, when you were younger, or were you just kind of left to fend for yourself?
I want to be very candid. I think that we've got to be able to have candid conversations within our
Absolutely.
Community. I think that the issue of sexuality is so oppressed in the African American community that it becomes over sexualized. That it's almost like we become over sexualized because it's not a healthy place to have the conversation. And we know that anything that you try to hide and oppress is going to come out in a very perverse way.
Yes.
Because it's almost like Paul saying, sin seizing the opportunity. You know, Paul said that I did not know what sin was until the law said, do not sin.
Right.
And so because there's no conversation about sexuality and how healthy it is, for example, this past weekend was my wife and I's anniversary. And so
what year?
23, dog.
Man, congratulations, man. You 23. And Tammy setting the standard, boy.
What up, fine self. Yeah, so and I'm gonna be 100 with y'all, you know.
Yeah.
Me and wifey, we were ministering to each other.
Yes.
We was ministering.
Knowing each other, getting to know each other in the biblical sense. There it is.
We was ministering to each other, and my 18-year-old son knocked on the door. And so when he knocked on the door, we freaked out, right? And so when she, you know, and I was like, you know, yeah, man, we busy, come back. So when I went into the kitchen, he was in the kitchen, and he said, well, you and my mama doing it? And I looked at him, I said, yeah. And he did like this. He was like, Daddy, you know, and my wife was blushing. But you know what made me proud, though?
Yeah.
Is I think that the image of sexuality in marriage does not look like a very healthy, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And at his age, I want him to know what the bar can be. Because for a lot of men, they think that they have to stay single to be able to keep a certain fire and a certain passion in their lives. And I believe that that is a true deception, because you continue to exacerbate that sinful nature. And so you never really know what healthy love can look like. And I want my 18-year-old young black son to be able to know that there is a healthy sexual love that happens when a man and a woman commit themselves and their bodies to God's way. you know, and I
Mm.
want him to be able to know that there's not something that you have to be quiet about. There's not something that you hide. It's not something that you oppress. That God made it beautiful, but he made it beautiful just like fire. Fire is a very beautiful thing that it keeps us healthy. It keeps us warm. It helps prepare our food. So it's a great thing. But a fire out of control can destroy an
Man,
entire
burn
village.
burn
And
the
I
whole
just want
thing
him to be
down.
able to understand the essence of what that fire can and can't be. And I can't do it by hiding it from him.
Mm.
I've got to be able to let him in on knowing that I love your mother in every way that God ordained for me to love her. Young age made it all even more disruptive and
Mm-hmm.
and unhealthy, and it became a very disfigured being. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I spent a lot of my life, even after I became a born again believer, because sex was not taught in the church.
Not at
You know,
all.
no, no, no,
Why?
no, no. Watch this, dog. Watch
Yeah.
this, Devon. Devon, watch this. As I got saved at 15 years old, right? And the church that I was a minister of music at, because I was a minister of music at a church at 15 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, once I got saved, now I had a conviction about being sexually active. And I went to my pastor and I went to his office. And this is real talk. This is real talk. And I went to him, I said, Pastor, I'm saved now and I'm struggling with living wrong sexually. Do you know what he did?
No.
He
What do
sat
you
back
do?
in his chair. He sat back in his chair and took a puff of his cigar. And he said, ah, boy, you young. You'll grow out of it.
What?
I grew into it,
Of course.
not out of it.
That was his response. You'll grow out of it. Oh, dude. But why? Why? I mean, listen, you've been raised in the church. I've been raised in the church. And I
Yeah,
talk about this in the book that no matter how saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost you or I may be, that does not by itself take away the urges that come upon us to
never.
do things that we know we probably shouldn't do, but we still have the desire to do. No matter
Yeah,
how often people say, just give it to Jesus. Well, sometimes Jesus gives it back to us because he's
yeah.
like, you got to do your work. Why do you feel the church, instead of being an environment which is a safe space where we can, talk about these issues and heal from these issues, why do you think the church culture still, even today, suppresses these issues? Why do you feel that we are not at a place where we can honestly deal with sex and sexuality?
It's because I believe that there's a high level of biblical illiteracy in the African American church. Is I believe that because of a lot of these systemic things that have always been very constant with our race of people, that you have a lot of pastors that really don't have an academic background in their biblical interpretation of scripture. For a lot of preachers, it's been a lot of on the job
Job
training.
training.
So
Mm-hmm.
they don't really have a very academic uh, approach to the text. So they don't really know how to walk out the text. And a lot of that isn't their fault. I mean, think about it. Even during the 60s, segregation was happening in a lot of biblical seminaries. Now, I don't know what Bible these Negroes was reading to be able to keep black folk out of church,
Right.
out of Bible school. But there were a lot of Bible schools during segregation that would even allow African Americans to be able to pursue biblical degrees in theology.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a high sense of biblical illiteracy in the pulpit. And that's a very strong problem that we have. So you don't know how to rightly divide what the text says about salvation or sexuality. And so, and then not only that, and then we have an issue as people of color about sexuality, period.
Right.
That we have never seen our mamas and daddies talk openly about their sexual relationship or sexual experience. For a lot of people, for the generation before us, it was just for having babies. It was never for pleasure. This is what you do just to procreate. And so you have this whole culture that has followed a lot of our beautiful people that we have never had the freedom to talk about. And then you suppress it with bad teaching of religion. You have a bomb waiting to explode. So you have a cultural situation where you have a cultural dynamic, and And then you have a religious dynamic. So you have this duplicity that is always fighting each other so that the people remain lost and ignorant in everything that God called them to be.
Man, I mean, I think you're 1000% right. And it's unfortunate because the thing you said earlier, which I completely agree with relative to suppression, anything we suppress, we empower.
Yeah. Yes.
Anything that we're in denial about, we actually empower it to destroy us. And so when it comes to this issue of sex, you know, as in the church, man, when I was growing up, they were just taught, don't do it. That's it. Don't do it. But it's like, yeah, I got that up until a point. And then what happened with me was, you know, I wasn't doing it up until senior year in high school. And then I got into a relationship. And then I was like, well, I didn't have a good enough reason not to do it.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I had been taught was don't do it. Yeah. And so because I didn't have a good enough reason not to do it, I did it. And but not only did I do it, I was telling everybody else, especially in the church, that I wasn't doing it. So I was lying to those trying to present an image, but reality, I was doing it. And over time, man, you know, it just didn't feel right because it's like I didn't know how do I deal with all this. This is why I love this conversation that we're having, man, because we need it. And there's so many people out right now that are listening that this is the first time they're hearing this conversation. And even in the hearing of this issue, there's healing in it. How did you, as you were, you know, coming into adolescence, and obviously you've been very open about, you know, porn and whatnot. When you first started seeing these images, how did you process this? You know, as a young kid, was it like, this is crazy, this is good, this is bad? Like, what was your thought process at that time?
I think that it can be the issue of we are by nature sexual beings. Like I remember Oprah talking once years ago, and she was having a conversation about when she was being molested as a little girl, because and, you know, she went through being molested as a young girl, and she was talking about as when she was a young girl being touched inappropriately, it was very awkward for her because she knew it was wrong, but then it was something about the touch that in essence felt good, but you knew it was wrong because it was coming from this wrong person. And so just how convoluted that can be. And so it can be the same thing with being promiscuous or even pornography. It's the issue of, because we're sexual beings, that touch, we were born to be touched. We were born to be held and embraced. And we were created to be sexual beings in the right sense. And so when you don't have that right teaching of what that natural feeling is, then it becomes very antagonized, per se. And so if you don't have anybody to be able to redirect you in what is natural and what be surrendered in the reality, it's like, okay, you're a young boy, you got hormones, you're horny. Those are real feelings.
Real feelings.
Where do I go with those feelings? And so if I just tell you to go to the altar, I'm not giving you all the story. I'm not giving you, that's just like me going to get a checkup and they say you got cancer. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do about it? Yeah, what are we going to do about the cancer? Yeah, right. It's like, okay, you got cancer. Thank you. Goodbye. It's like, no, what is the plan? And so we don't do a good job of walking people through the plan. And I think that hopefully there's a new generation that will see that we cannot continue to exacerbate these issues, but transparency and honesty is going to be able to get people back on the right track, because God can only heal what we reveal. Yes.
And reveal, because sometimes we are hiding from ourselves.
Yeah.
Because there's so much shame and guilt, you know, especially around this issue of sex, that we can't even be honest with who we are to ourselves, let alone to God.
Yes,
and as a result, a lot of this behavior, you know, just persists, and it doesn't get healed. It gets a whole lot worse.
Yes, sir.
You know, how were you able to get to a place, you know, did you have to hit a rock bottom, so to speak, before you said, okay, I've got to do something about this, or I've got to learn another way to, you know, have a healthy sexual life? Like, what was that process like for you?
What it is, what it was to me is that becoming a born again believer became very powerful, and it became a very important piece to my Christian journey. Like, I did not, when I came to Christ, it was life transforming for me. I really became very passionate, very quick about really wanting to live right. Now, the problem was I did not have the tools, and I did not have the knowledge to know how, but I had strong desire. So when it came to now I'm full blown being sexually active, and now I got conviction. And now I don't know what to do with it, because now at this point, it's like all the bros are doing it.
Right.
And at this point, there are grown men in the church doing it. And at this point, there are pastors in the church that are tipping and dipping. So it's like I'm looking all around, and there's no real clear blueprint. But in my heart, I knew something was wrong with it. Something was wrong with being that active. And in my heart, I knew that I was not feeding myself the right food. And so what I thought was going to fix it was getting married.
Now we talking.
Beautiful woman, great woman, fine woman. And I'm thinking, okay, it's like I got this fine, pretty woman. It's going to be on and popping every night. You know what I'm saying? Whoop, whoop, whoop. And then you realize that the sickness is spiritual. That ain't physical.
Oh, man.
And because it's spiritual, one human can't fix that. And especially when a man develops a diet.
Oh, now you all up in the book. Preach it, man. You keep going. Yes, say this.
Okay, so now I'm finna really give y'all some 100, ladies and gentlemen. And if there's some dudes on here, and ladies, listen to this, because I'm little Kirk finna give you a little bit of some right here. If a man has a woman, let's say, and that woman is the woman that lets him make the booty call, lets him come over at night, and she's the one that always let him drive the car, treat him nice, let him come over whenever he wants to. Well, that's one style of woman. So now he's developed that diet. And then he got another little dip over here. And let's say she's a freak, she's a freak. She'll do whatever, boom, 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 boom. It's always on and popping, always firecrackers. And then that's that woman. And then he got the little shy woman, I don't know much, and then he goes over there and jumps off. So now he's got these 3 different personalities of a woman that he's physically active with. And then let's say that there's another woman that she may not be really all that in the bedroom, but she's a good woman, she got a good job, she's smart, and and she may want to be broke off every now and then. So he go over there to break her off. So now he's got these 4 women he's sleeping with. But what he does not realize in the spiritual realm, he's got these 4 spirits.
Yes.
He's sleeping with
these 4 spirits and these 4 diets that he's accustomed to.
4 diets and 4 spirits. And then he gets married. And he don't realize it, but now he's expecting for this one woman to perform and feed all of these different diets that he's developed. So now he's got these 4 diets that he's expecting for this one woman to fulfill.
Now we talking.
And when she don't fulfill it,
I'm going to find this page in the book.
Now they're having problems. Because what he did not do is he did not divorce those diets.
And I say in the book, and I'm trying to find it, here in the book, but dude, I say in the book that one of the reasons why our divorce rate is so high, one of the reasons why our marriages are in such trouble is because as men, we develop an appetite outside of marriage. We have no discipline before marriage in our dating life. We have no discipline. So what you just talked about with all those different diets, I talk about in the book, just to back up. So the fundamental idea behind the truth about men is that every man struggles with lust. And that lust is a selfish impulse for personal, professional, financial, or sometimes even spiritual gain by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. And I call lust the dog. I say that